Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us, and that helps the bands and artists that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. And it is cold here in Pennsylvania, so a crew neck sweatshirt is appropriate. They also got hoodies and all kinds of clothing to keep you warm in the wintertime. So today, ladies and gentlemen, this is a new one for us. And because it's 2025, I kind of assumed that when I went back to the year 2000, that I would find some gems and some albums that I had already known had come out that year that I was kind of interested in kind of revisiting. But after really doing some intense and some, good research with the research department here, we found that, man, the year 2000 was a fantastic year for albums and for music. So we're looking at today five albums that came out in 2000, 25 years ago, and these bands are still relevant today. And I wanted to deliberately pick bands that were still relevant, still touring, which in turn, as you'll find out, some of these bands are actually doing these albums in their entirety on their 2025 tours. So, this is kind of exciting for me. Hopefully, you will enjoy this as much as I did. So, let's dive into it and give you a little history of why we're doing this. So, it starts with this. In 2000, in the year 2000, eggs were 91 cents a dozen. Bill Clinton was our president, and the median value of a home in the United States was under $120,000. The Y2K scare turned out to be nothing, and we entered a new millennium full of hope, and as it turns out, like I said earlier, a fantastic year for music. So let's dive in and talk about these five iconic albums and the stories and songs that made them still resonate 25 years later. So the first album that I want to talk about, and of all of the artists and bands that I'm going to talk about, this album in particular is so different and so, yeah, just completely different than what you are hearing from this band today. And like I said, the only band or artist of the five that I can definitively say that. That band is Coldplay, ladies and gentlemen. The album is Parachutes. It came out on July 10th, and it comprised of 10 songs, just under, I think, or just over 42 minutes. The three songs that just captivated me, Don't Panic, Trouble, and Everything's Not Lost. The album itself was dedicated to Sarah Champion, drummer Will's mother. 2 months before the album released, she died of cancer. The album cover of the lit up globe was shot by the band themselves. And if you listen after Everything's Not Lost, a hidden track called Life is for Living starts to play. For them to play this album in its entirety, as like I said, compared to their evolution over the years of now being, let's just say, electro pop, with little guitar and especially minimal acoustic, would be a welcome change and remind newer fans that everything's not lost. The second album that I am featuring, ladies and gentlemen, is by an artist that doesn't need any introduction. It's Eminem and his album, The Marshall Mathers LP, came out on May 23rd. 18 songs at over an hour and 12 minutes, 72 minutes of music. The three songs, and I could have picked, eight of them: Stan, The Way I Am, and The Real Slim Shady. His third album, released during the time of NSYNC and Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera and all of that, TRL pop music, is a reaction to his fame and the trouble that comes with it. As just 2 weeks after the album was released, he was arrested on a gun charge with his girlfriend, Kim. He almost got denied entry into the country of Canada while on tour with Limp Bizkit, yet got to perform with Elton John at the Grammys. The album itself spent 8 weeks at number one, and Rolling Stone magazine named it the best of 2000. Our next band and album, ladies and gentlemen, might be a little bit of a curveball for those of you who listen to me regularly, but this album, man, I'll just get to it. It's called White Pony, and it's by the Deftones, ladies and gentlemen. It came out a week earlier than Eminem's album on May 16th. 12 songs, 53 minutes. The songs that I'm featuring: Change, of course, In the House of Flies, Pink Maggot, and Back to School, Mini Maggot. The album cover with the outline of a horse galloping is one of the most iconic of the 2000s, and the third album recorded in the town of Sausalito, California, as the boys lived together, played a lot of Tony Hawk Pro Skater, which if you're my age or a little younger, you'll remember that game, and drank mimosas while lead singer Chino was learning to play guitar. Guest vocalist Scott Weiland and Maynard James Keenan contribute to an album that was released on Chino's 27th birthday, and on a night where they played Change on David Letterman. A different direction musically from their previous albums, but obviously 25 years later, this album still stands, and it paid off for them in the end. My next artist and album, our fourth one in our bands with albums that came out in 2000. Ryan Adams, ladies and gentlemen, and his album, Heartbreaker. It came out September 5th, 15 songs, and just over 52 minutes. The three songs I'm featuring: My Winding Wheel, Oh My Sweet Carolina, and Come Pick Me Up. But again, I could have picked six that all could be deserving on this 15-song album. And this is the debut album for this controversial singer-songwriter. It was written in a rented house in Nashville, with no furniture but plenty of brown recluse spiders. After leaving New York City and his longtime girlfriend, Amy Lombardi. The album title, Heartbreaker, was inspired by a Mariah Carey poster, and Ryan is the only artist on my list that is actually doing a tour around the album so far. So like I told you earlier, he is the only one so far that has announced something. Pitchfork rated it a 9.0, and they basically give music in general like a 4.8. So for them to double it with a 9.0 It really tells you how great this album is. And they called it a drinker's album. And it really saved and catapulted Mr. Adams' music career because Whiskeytown had kind of fizzled out. Ladies and gentlemen, our last album of our episode, my favorite band in the world, Radiohead. They released their album, Kid A, on October 2nd with 11 songs at 47 minutes long. The opening track, Everything in Its Right Place, the national anthem, and probably my favorite song that they've ever done, How to Disappear Completely. This album, ladies and gentlemen, was recorded in 4 studios in 3 different countries. Like the album, there are disorienting times and invigorating moments on this follow-up to OK Computer and their 4th studio album. I just remember the lead up to this album because everyone wasn't sure what they were doing after OK Computer, it being just this, monumental album of the 90s. But yeah, it definitely went in different directions, like I said. Creatively, they recorded enough songs, though, to do the follow-up, Amnesiac, from these sessions. And Kid A became their first album to reach #1 on the U.S. Billboard charts. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. My 5 albums of 2000, 25 years later. Parachutes by Coldplay, the Marshall Mathers LP by Eminem, White Pony by Deftones, Heartbreaker by Ryan Adams, and Kid A by Radiohead. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, I had to give you some honorable mentions. And again, another band that is actually touring the album that came out in 2000. That is a band called Disturbed and their album, The Sickness. They are touring behind that album. But the other albums that I had in consideration, A Perfect Circle's Mare de Noms, Nelly's Country Grammar, Limp Bizkit Chocolate Starfish and the hot dog flavored water, Linkin Park's Hybrid Theory, and U2's All That You Can't Leave Behind. So there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. I would love to hear your feedback and your 5 albums or any of your albums that I missed that I should have, spoke about in this episode. Would love to hear about them. But in the meantime, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR Outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dogg. You've been great. This is the Music Lab Podcast.